Hey everybody, Tony D with another hot take, and this one's about who's in charge. Who's in charge? Um, as I said in my last video, I think Black Lives Matter has lost the thread of this whole thing. I'm also upset to see that Antifa has been embraced by Black Lives Matter. It basically seems like the DNC now has two fists. One's called Antifa, one's called Black Lives Matter, and they'll use it to get reelected. I don't like that. The three groups should disavow each other. And if you don't disavow this violence, you're going to lose. You're going to lose all your political power because people don't like violence in their politics. They really don't. And understand who you're going up against. You're going up against the better armed right-wingers. Those guys have guns to beat the band. Oh, you got a few guns. Oh, you got a few police chiefs and a couple of military guys that are on your side. But the vast swath of military people are more Republican leaning, I would say, libertarian leaning. Big fans of guns and gun rights, which, yeah, they don't support anti-gun nuts like Joe Biden. So, but who's really in charge, right? Part of the problem is you've got these groups doing all this stuff, and the Democrats are standing behind. They're trying to play one end against the middle. The end being Antifa, because they're extremists, and the middle being Donald Trump. They're trying to play that game of like, well, you know, we're not Antifa, but ruin things for Donald Trump, right? So you've got this mayor of Olympia, Washington, who big fan of BLM, Antifa, one and the same, really, on the West Coast. I know, there are peaceful protesters, but you guys, if you put Black Lives Matter in your name anywhere, you're essentially, until you denounce Antifa and get them out of your house, people are going to associate you with the riots. There's no distinction there. You've got people in the Chaz with signs that say BLM and Antifa. You got to say something. If you cannot say something, at the very least, people are going to conflate the two of you. So don't talk to me about a peaceful protest. You're not peaceful protesters. Look, people in back in the day during the peace protest, they didn't hold up signs saying "Weather Underground." That wasn't what they did. They held up signs saying "Make love, not war," peace, things like that. Black Lives Matter has a problem with real extremists in their group. They also just came out with a video saying, we're trained Marxists. Not a good look, Black Lives Matter. Not a good look at all. And not a good look for the Democratic Party, to which they're joined at the hip through Act Blue. But I digress. So, Olympia Mayor loves Black Lives Matter, supports it, supports the protesters, thinks it's all peaceful. She's an older woman, not really paying attention to the news, I think. Then the rioters, who she still calls protesters, come to her neighborhood and vandalize it, including her very building where she lives. Spray paint stuff on the walls. Now she goes, this is like domestic terrorism. It's like a wake-up call, right? Suddenly, now she's throwing around words like domestic terrorism. Well, yeah, because you just clearly, in my view, haven't been paying attention to what's been going on. You've got radicalized college students running around saying, smash the state. You're the state, dumbass. You're the mayor. Do something. You're in charge. Now, a lot of you might be saying, well, the mayor doesn't run the cops. Oh, but she kind of does, because she makes the budgets and she works with the cops. And if she got a parking ticket, would she call the janitor? Would she call the health department? No, she'd call up the cops. She'd call up the head cop, whoever it was, chief of police or whatever, and say, hey, some moron gave me a ticket. Make it go away. And he'd say, oh, sorry, Miss Mayor. I'll get that taken care of right away. If her daughter or son got a ticket, she'd be like, why does my daughter or son have a ticket? Oh, sorry about that, Mayor. I don't know who keeps giving out these tickets, so I'll take care of that right away. That's how it works. she controls the money. She controls the purse strings. She controls partially the legislation that gets passed citywide. She's like the president of the city. There's probably a city council or some kind of legislative body that she has to deal with, but, this is how our government works. So the civilian government is in charge of the cops. The cops don't go out on their own. They're not a separate entity here. They are controlled by the legislature, who she is in charge of. She's in charge of the legislature. She's the president of Olympia, for better or for worse. Why isn't she doing something? Now that she's been vandalized, now she's all up in arms and talking about domestic terrorism. See how that happens? When your business is being vandalized, when you're being harassed on the street, when your business is closed down, well, you're just some sort of awful bigot. Oh, but wait, my house was vandalized. Well, this is domestic terrorism, everybody. The mayor of Portland, Portland being the capital of Antifa, finally got his comeuppance. The Antifa idiots decided to form their autonomous zone in Portland right on his street where he has his condo. And he even put up with it for about a little less than 24 hours, I guess. He went out on the street and picked up trash like he was going to kind of help. They vandalized the whole street and left tons of trash and put up barriers and whatnot. But to his credit, Mayor Ted Wheeler finally called the cops and said, okay, shut it down. And it went down without much of a problem. Probably because he did that quickly and soon. He didn't let it, build up into something too big before it got crazy. It's also probably true that the Portland chapter, part of them are probably sitting in Seattle right now. The mayor of Seattle, however, she's let it go on and on and on. And now she's doubled down, and now she kind of can't get out of it. She's kind of stuck with it, because now if she sends a cop in to shut it down, she'll look like a hypocrite. I think she's probably waiting for things to get so bad that it could justify it. Then she could say something like, well, of course, many of the people in CHOP or Chaz, whatever they're calling it today, were very peaceful, but this particular element entered and we had to go in and save the people in the CHOP, autonomous zone, whatever the hell it is. That's not going to really resonate too well, but, it's an out. It's an out for her to finally, get political revenge on Antifa, who basically screwed her, to get a little bit of revenge against the hardcore socialist that's in her city council, who I imagine is clearly going to run for mayor next time she's up for re-election. I hope you guys split the vote and you get some hardcore Republican in there to finally clean up the streets. Or even better, a constitutionalist or libertarian. Now, libertarian might allow you to balkanize part of the city, under certain conditions. I wouldn't expect you to have water and heat and light, unless you plan on paying for it, though. But, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is this is going to drag on and on and on, right around until November. And in November, after the election, no matter which way it goes, and it's probably going to go for Trump, let's be honest, all this stuff will end. Because the DNC will say, well, pull the plug, we're done. We're done with this. Now we got to do something else. And they'll be on to their next goofball strategy, if there's even a DNC worth saving at that point. I kind of think they might be on their way out, and something new might emerge, possibly a Green Party type situation. I don't know if the Greens really aren't taking advantage of this time. They really should be out there converting people and trying to get people on board with their cause. Because the Antifa guys do not want to vote for Joe Biden. And a lot of Bernie supporters don't either. So if you can get people on board, and really, if you could get Bernie to run in the Green Party, well, you'd totally split the vote, and that would be the end of it. But a lot of people see that and they don't want that. So they sort of cave in and they go to Biden. But there are a lot of people who are pretty steadfast not going to vote. I mean, I went through the same process, except I became a libertarian, right? I couldn't take all this warmongering. And then, Ralph Nader came along and really provided another avenue of, someone I could vote for. Someone who, I didn't expect him to win, but he was pretty good in terms of his presentation and what his plans were. Now, I didn't agree with all of it, but when it came to foreign policy, certainly there was a lot of agreement there. And at the time, Bush was in office, and it was pretty paramount for us to stop the war there. It didn't work, and the war stopped anyway, thankfully. But in this case, a lot of people see Trump that way. He's really not that way. At least he's a good steward of the economy, you can say. If you can't say anything in his favor, you certainly can admit that. Even some of his most hardened critics have admitted that. But understand who's in charge here. When Mayor of Olympia gets vandalized, suddenly it's domestic terrorism. When the mayor of Portland has a street all wrecked, suddenly the cops do come. Mayor of Seattle. Yeah, I guess she lives far enough away from the Chaz. She doesn't have to hear all that BS and smell it. So you can see how this is going. So Antifa idiots. I don't know what your real plan is. Some of you plan to actually topple the state to actually help Trump in your old weird way by toppling the neo-libs. So you can see how they react. They don't react well. And I think eventually these Democrats will turn on you, Antifa, and they'll be just as vicious as the Republicans, if not more vicious. I think they'll actually be more vicious. They'll be looking, if they win, if Biden were to win, I think they will come down on you 10 times worse than Trump. 10 times worse. Because, see, they have political cover. They can say, well, of course I'm on the left side too, but we can't succor these extremists now that they're of no use to us. That's what's going to happen to you. So understand that, and understand that's already happening under Trump. The real problem with this is local government. And if your police are racist, if they're beating people up, if they're not doing their job, you have no one to blame. Don't blame the cops. Blame the guys who order the cops around. Blame your local government and see who's in charge. In the cities,